What's going on, Rooftop Leaders? Let me ask you a question. How do you lead teams in crisis? This is a question that I get all the time. It's a question that I've been asking myself for many, many years since I served as a Green Beret in Special Forces. And, it's not an easy question to answer. And as I work all around the country today, I work with leaders from all kinds of industries. I work with leaders in Fortune 500 companies, commercial banks, the tech industry, small nonprofits, small businesses, law enforcement and military. And this question always comes up. And the bottom line is that leaders across all industries, community leaders, family leaders, we all want the same thing. We want to lead our people to better ground. We want to lead them to better days. We want to lead them to an environment where everybody's thriving and not surviving, because that's what it feels like in a time of crisis. And one of the hardest things about that I've found as a leader, and what I hear all the time, is that when you're in a crisis situation like we are today in the country, where there is persistent fear, there is persistent uncertainty, there's a level of isolation that comes from the mandated separation that we have to have, and just the common sense separation. You put all those things together and that conspires to form a pretty rough environment. It does form a persistent crisis. Leading in a short-term crisis is one thing, right? The market tanks, or you have an overage of a certain kind and you got to respond to it. But when it's a long-term crisis, that's a whole different animal. And I think what that does is it causes leaders to feel stuck. It causes you to feel frustrated because you're looking at this problem set. You're looking at your people who are tired. They're struggling. They are isolated at home. They're in an 800 square foot apartment with kids crawling all over the place. And they don't know if they're going to have a job tomorrow. They don't know if the cash is going to flow tomorrow, and you don't either. And that's a whole new way of looking at a problem, isn't it? And that feels very frustrating. It feels like you know it's wrong, it's challenging, but you don't have a solution for it. You don't even have a language for this kind of thing, because most leaders have never had to face something like this in a modern democracy. But at the highest level, I know that you see better ground, you see better days, you see a ridgeline to go to, but it's even more frustrating because you're not sure exactly how to move through it to get there. You see the destination, but how do I move my people to take action so that we can play at that higher level and come out on the other side of this thing? I know exactly what that feels like. In almost 23 years in the Army, and 18 of that as a Green Beret, I operated in some of the most trust-depleted, high-stakes, no-fail places on earth. And I had to lead teams in those environments. And it was very, very uncertain. There was tons of fear. There was a lot of isolation. There was tons of change happening all the time. And I made a lot of mistakes in that process, but I also learned a lot. And I had the opportunity to work with some of the finest leaders in the world who showed me and helped me develop a system that I call Rooftop Leadership, that allowed me to lead in times of crisis in a very, very effective way. Not just in the military, not just in places like Afghanistan and Colombia, but right here at home over the last 8 years, where I've served as a small business owner myself, co-founder of a nonprofit, a playwright, an actor, and a business coach to hundreds of business leaders and folks just like you who are stuck and trying to lead through that crisis. I know what that feels like. And the system that I've developed, this Rooftop Leadership system, and particularly for this arena that we live in right now, is what I call leading teams in crisis. I've put together a product. I've put together a self-study, self-paced, digital, remote production of 12 modules that allows you to lead teams in crisis, that teaches your managers, your people, how to lead teams in crisis. And it's not, platitudes, it's not theory. It's the stuff that was formed in the trenches, that works in life and death, and it sure as hell works in life and business and life and community. It's really 3 basic steps. The first one is you have to recognize what's happening in your arena. You have to recognize what goes on in a crisis. See, most people don't know that. Most people don't know what the human dynamics are that take place when fear and change start to press on us as humans and start to press on our arena. There's a whole primal response that happens with that most folks don't even know what it is. Well, how in the world can you lead through it if you don't know what it is and you don't have a language for it? It's impossible. So that's the first step, is to recognize the arena. The next thing this course does is it helps you lead yourself. You know, Professor James Clausen says leadership is the management of energy, yourself, then others. And that's exactly what this course teaches you how to do, is how to lead yourself first in these really crisis-dominated situations, how to get control of your own emotional temperature so that you can hold space and move others. And then finally, it's connecting like your life depends on it. You know, at Rooftop Leadership, I've developed a ton of no BS, hard-hitting, human engagement skills. This is all about bringing human connection back to high performance, moving people to take action in a time of crisis. You got to connect with them, and it's got to be science and art. And that's the third step, is really connecting across those gaps. And when you do all those threes in tandem, it has a powerful, powerful effect. What I would love for you to do is click on the link when this video is done. Watch our short little video on it, and you'll see that this thing is very, very powerful. The modules are short. There's a course guide that goes with it. It's super relevant to what you do right now. It's beautifully edited with B-roll, with pictures, with animation, and things that you can do right now to recognize your arena, lead yourself first, and then connect like your life depends on it with the people around you and move them to action. You know, my thoughts on it are, it's one of those things, if this crisis isn't going away anytime soon. I mean, I hope that you've picked up on that, right? I hope that you've picked up on that. It really isn't. We're going to be in some semblance of this for a while. And the outcome is predictable if you stay on the same path, and more importantly, if your people stay on the same path. If we don't give them a language, goodness, for what's happening around them, and an understanding of the human dynamics at play, how can we expect them to lead your business out of this? How can you expect cash flow to change? How can you expect customer management relations to change? It won't. It's totally predictable, because the fear and the change will continue to press in a way that the environment owns your leadership, not the other way around. And what I believe is that this leading teams through crisis, if you will get your folks in there, if you will get in there and do the work on this thing, what you'll find is clarity. Your people will find clarity. They will find stability. But you know what they'll find more than anything is what Daniel Coyle says are the three most important things to a high-performing culture. Leading teams through crisis, leading teams in crisis, they're going to find psychological safety. They're going to find a sense of better human connection. And they're going to see that they have a shared future with what you're putting forward. And those are the three things that every human needs to be part of a high-performing culture. So you're going to take your organization from surviving to thriving. Thanks for what you do, and I'll see you on the rooftop.